Conventional deadlifts versus sumo deadlifts. So first off, let's just hit the first thing that people are going to comment. Sumo's cheating. Sumo is not cheating because it's not against the rules. Now, regardless of whether or not it's easier or anything like that, that's a different discussion. But sumo is not cheating because it's not against the rules. There are certainly things that are cheating. Weightlifting is really more my thing. So, one of the things you'll notice that people get away with that they shouldn't is in the jerk. People will do this little dip thing, and it gets the bar oscillating, right? The bar bends, and you get the reflex of the bar. And so it lets you get a little more on the jerk. And you'll notice this. Certain athletes will do this, and for whatever reason, they get away with it. I'm not going to accuse the judges at the Olympics of maybe having some favoritism, but it certainly seems that certain countries get away with doing this and other countries don't. Is that because the judges are biased? Maybe. Or maybe some athletes are better at masking it. Kind of just, they get up so quick that the bar's still oscillating when they initiate their jerk. But by the rules, you're supposed to stand up the clean, the bar has to come to a stop, and then you jerk. Some athletes will move right into the jerk before the bar stops oscillating, which kind of gives them a little bit of an edge. That's cheating. You'll also notice, and this one pisses me off, this is just a judging thing, and it's true in powerlifting too. Judging sucks sometimes. People will get called for their elbow, right? So when you jerk, you have to lock out, and sometimes you'll see someone's elbow definitely wobbles, and they still get a good lift on it. Is that cheating? I kind of feel like it is, but it's not like the athlete has control over what the judges decide. So I blame the judges rather than blaming the athlete. Same thing in squats. For powerlifting, you have definitely seen high squats. We've all seen high squats. We've all seen squats that was nowhere near fucking parallel. And yet the judges gave it green lights and we're like, yeah, that's good. White lights, I guess, is actually the real word. I'm just saying green light, red light, like a traffic light. But white lights, it's good, Meanwhile, there are guys who definitely buried their squat below parallel and got red lights. Do you blame the athlete? Do you blame the judges? Cheating, certainly using drugs. Drugs is cheating. I got to be careful here. Different federations in powerlifting, it's allowed, but in the Olympics, we all know that it's not allowed. And certainly there are federations in powerlifting where drugs are not allowed, and so if you're using drugs, you're cheating. Regardless of whether or not you pass the drug test, it's still cheating. So there are definitely things that are cheating. A sumo deadlift is not cheating because it's not against the rules. Okay, that's out of the way. Go ahead and put your angry comments down below that it's cheating. I made a comment on Facebook. So I was talking about training and someone commented. I'm not going to name the person who commented because they're just a regular person. And they commented, well, why do people sumo deadlift? It doesn't seem fair that some people can sumo deadlift. And, why would anyone choose the sumo deadlift? Because we all know that in, strongman, you have to conventional. And, it seems to me that it's unfair that, sumo deadlifting is allowed. And, they were commenting about why would someone choose to sumo deadlift? And I was actually making a point about just lifting in general. I wasn't talking about competition or sport. I was just commenting about various forms of lifts, whether or not you deadlift from the floor or you deadlift from blocks or rack pulls or, and in fact, actually, even if you pull conventional, you should do some sumo deadlifts in your programming. In any case, I answered this person and I told them, well, the reason to sumo deadlift is because it's easier. Because it is. Don't get this twisted. The sumo deadlift is more similar to a squat in terms of the muscle mechanics and things like that. So it's got a lot of quad in it. And if you guys think about this in terms of your programming, many people can do squat every day. You could squat and squat and squat, and you'll recover much quicker from squats. It's very quad dominant, and so similar to the way that you can recover from squats, you can recover from sumo deadlifts much easier. It's also less work. So if we just think about work in terms of just physics, it's math. You have a load. That load has to travel a certain distance. So if you're 6 feet tall and you pull 225, you have actually done more work than a person who is 5 feet tall and pulls 225 because the bar had to travel further. I'm sure that this is true for everyone. If I look at the bar and I'm doing a conventional deadlift, the bar actually travels further in terms of distance than it does whenever I sumo deadlift. Now, I don't compete in powerlifting, but I do both. I do deadlifts and I do sumo deadlifts because I feel that it's important to continue to train the posterior chain and have a strong back, strong glutes, strong hamstrings. That's important. So I do a whole bunch of variations of pulls. I do snatch pulls and clean pulls, and I do a whole variety of single leg RDLs, and so I don't have an issue with people including sumo deadlifts in their program. In fact, I think you're smart if you include sumo deadlifts in your program, even if you conventional in competition. That being said, I wrote back to this person explaining that the sumo deadlift is easier. It's less work. The bar doesn't travel as far, and it's easier to recover from. I will name the person who I argued with, and I think highly of him. I don't want you to think that because I disagree with somebody that I hate them. That is childish. Okay, I am completely capable of disagreeing with someone that I am friends with. I am completely capable of disagreeing with someone and not judging that person in any way, shape, or form. Jason Blaha commented, and we went back and forth a little bit about how he feels that the sumo deadlift is not easier. And I, again, cited the physics of it and pointed out, look, if the load is the load, if we're pulling 405 versus 405, a 405 sumo deadlift doesn't travel as far in the bar path as a conventional deadlift. So regardless, if the weight is the same, 405 versus 405, you're doing more work doing a conventional deadlift because the bar has to travel further. But more importantly to this is the fact that it's easier to recover from. Like, it's just easier on your body. Go do a max deadlift conventional. I mean, everyone talks about this. This is not like something unusual. I'm not coming up with something that other people haven't said. Everyone knows, like, if you are good at deadlift and you're efficient with the deadlift, when you pull a max, like, you're fried. Like, it takes a while to recover. You can't just max out deadlifts every day, especially if you're a conventional puller. But if you do sumo, you can train it more often. You can pull it more often. And I would actually tell you that this is true even of squats. If you low bar back squat, it is harder to recover from than a high bar squat. Because your back. Your back doesn't recover very well compared to, say, your quads. So, I can front squat, and the only thing that's sore the next day are my quads. If I low bar back squat, I mean, my glutes are lit up, and my hamstrings, my low back, my hips, my quads, everything's just, it's just a different mechanic, okay? So the thing I would like to hammer home here, okay, is that sumo deadlifts are easier. That doesn't mean that there aren't some people who pull more sumo than they do conventional, or there are some people who pull more conventional than they do sumo. The thing is that the sumo is easier on your body. So even if you pull conventional and, I deadlift more conventional, that's fine. But in terms of your training volume and your ability to recover, doing sumo deadlifts is going to be easier for you to recover from. Therefore, you can train them more often. And that's something to think about. It's true even for whenever I talk to people about squatting. I encourage people, even if you low bar back squat because you're competing in powerlifting and stuff like that, you should probably have some front squats in your program. Like, there's nothing wrong with having stronger quads. I can't think of a problem. Oh man, well, I low bar back squat in competition, therefore I wouldn't want to make my quads any stronger. Well, that doesn't make any goddamn sense. Do some front squats, because why? Because you can recover from them very easily. Relatively easily, I should say. You can recover from them relatively easily compared to the low bar back squat. Okay, certainly there are other things that are even easier to recover from. If you want to do overhead squats, now we're barely even loading your quads. No one can overhead squat anything even close to what they low bar back squat. But the point being, do front squats because why? Because it's easier to recover from than the low bar back squat, and it still hammers your quads, so you're going to get stronger quads. If you pull conventional, do sumo deadlifts because why? Because they're easier to recover from, and you can train it more often. So now you're getting more frequency in your training. Now you can add some more volume. There's nothing wrong with you getting stronger. I don't understand. I really genuinely don't understand some of the programming concepts that people have. People are like, well, you should only do the competition lifts. And it's like, no, fuck that. Get stronger. Having stronger quads is going to make you better at squatting, regardless if you're high bar, low bar, or front squat. Having stronger glutes and stronger hamstrings is going to make you better at the deadlift than, it doesn't matter if you pull conventional or sumo. I mean, having stronger legs and a stronger back is good for you. I mean, that's why you should do RDLs, good mornings. Those things will transfer. So my point here is, should you sumo deadlift? Yes. Does that mean that that's the best deadlift for you in competition? No, not necessarily, because maybe you pull more conventional. But that doesn't mean that sumo deadlifts don't belong in your program, because sumo deadlifts are less work in terms of the distance the bar travels and easier to recover from, and therefore you can use them more frequently, which is almost always a good thing. Training frequency is important. Think about it. A guy who squats twice a week is probably going to do better than a guy who squats once a week. A guy who can deadlift every week is probably going to make more progress than a person who deadlifts and then can't recover for 2 weeks. So, just think about those things whenever you're programming. And this isn't a criticism of people who sumo deadlift are moral failures because it's easier. No, just use it. It's another tool in the toolbox. And you'll notice that a lot of the people who do sumo deadlift, they deadlift more frequently. Because why? Because we all know that the conventional deadlift takes a lot more out of you and it takes more time to recover. So that's my 2 cents on the whole thing. Feel free to comment below about why sumo's cheating, but I don't compete, so I use sumo deadlifts with athletes because why? Because we can deadlift more often. Same with why I choose to do things like we're going to do snatch grip deadlifts, because now I still have you pulling something off the floor, but it's very sub-maximal compared to what you're capable of, therefore you're probably going to recover sooner. And it really is that simple. Just use the tools that you have available.